Welcome back to a brand new video from 55 degrees north and to episode 35 of your fortnightly Newcastle upon Tyne construction and restoration update video. Coming up in this week's episode, we'll be checking in on all the usual sites, including Pottery Lane, Pilgrim Place and many more. Plus, make sure you stick around until the end, as I've got some fresh news on the stalled Gateshead Quays Arena and Conference Centre project that you won't want to miss. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Starting again this week at the site of the former General Hospital, the area that's been cleared to make way for the brand new Health and Innovation neighbourhood. Looking across the back of the site, not much has changed since our last video 2 weeks ago. There are still several large piles of crushed material sitting across the ground, either waiting to be reused here on site or taken away for recycling. You can also see workers continuing to sort materials into large skips, making sure everything is separated for reuse or disposal. Moving further back, behind what was the original main building, demolition of some of the smaller blocks is still ongoing. Bit by bit, they're disappearing. Coming back round towards the front, it's looking pretty much the same as in previous weeks. Not a lot of visible progress here just yet. As we turn around and head back towards the old main block, you'll notice something new. The canopy that once covered the ambulance entrance has now been removed. With it gone, you get a much clearer view of the smaller blocks alongside the main building that have been knocked down. And now, looking directly at the main block itself, there's a clear sign of things moving forward. A lot more windows have been removed since our last visit. It's the same story around the back. More and more windows gone, leaving the building looking increasingly hollowed out. It feels like it won't be long before the full demolition of the main block begins. It's a shame they couldn't find a way to keep the main block and restore it as part of the new development. It would have been nice to see a bit of the old hospital's history carried forward into the future. But for now, the transformation continues. Now moving down to check in on the progress of the new students' accommodation being built on Leazes Park Road. It's been 2 weeks since our last visit, so let's see what's changed. As we start at the front of the site, you'll notice it's pretty much the same as it was a couple of weeks ago. So let's head in a bit closer and see what else has been happening. Looking along Leazes Park Road, you can really see the full footprint of the building taking shape. There's been steady progress here. A lot more window frames have now been installed along this side. Moving around to the back, it's a similar story to the front. Again, more window frames have gone in, and if you look closely at the retaining wall, you can see it's now nearly completely covered with brickwork, which really tidies up the whole area. Finally, down at the old building at the front, this is actually the only remaining Georgian building on Strawberry Place. Looking on the bottom section, you can now see new window frames have been installed here too, complete with glass already fitted. So overall, things are moving along steadily. We're starting to see more of the final look coming together, especially with the windows and brickwork going in. So we're now heading down to Strawberry Place to check out the latest progress with the work that's going on above the metro station. Now at first glance, it actually looks like work here might be complete. All the white fencing that's been up for months has now been removed, and in its place you can see these sleek new black railings going up right round the top of the metro station. But here's the thing, according to the original planning application, there were supposed to be new advertising boards going up around here as well, and so far I'm not seeing any sign of them. So I'm not sure if that part of the plan has been scrapped, or has it just been delayed. It's hard to say right now. There is still some scaffolding up around the front of the metro, so maybe that's a sign there's still more work to come. Only time will tell if those advertising boards ever make an appearance. I'll be keeping an eye on it and make sure to keep you all updated if anything changes here in the coming months. We're now heading down to Pottery Lane to check on the progress of those new apartment blocks that are due to open sometime in 2026 or 2027. As usual, we're starting up here on the Redgate Bridge to get a better look across the whole site. As you can see, not much has changed from previous updates at first glance. Most of the buildings are still covered in scaffolding, but if we take a closer look, there is actually quite a few details to spot. Looking towards the back of the buildings, you can see a lot more of the red brickwork has now been completed. And moving down to the front, you can see more brickwork starting to rise in a sandy colour, which really stands out against the rest of the site. So we'll now move down to Pottery Lane itself for a closer look from ground level. Here, at what I'm calling Block 1, you can see the red brickwork starting to go up on this side of the building. Right at the front, there are stacks of pre-made installation blocks on pallets, all lined up and waiting to be fitted. Moving on to Building 2, it's a similar story. More red brickwork going up along the side of the building and slowly working its way right along the front as well. There are skips full of scrap bits of plasterboard, which means they're clearly been working on the interior too. And just a bit further along, it looks like some sort of shutter has been installed. Over on this side, there's loads of building materials lined up, all ready to be used in the near future. So it looks like things are really starting to move along. So that's the latest from Pottery Lane. It might not look like much from a distance, but there's definitely steady progress happening behind that scaffolding. Now, heading down to the new Pilgrim Place development at Carlisle Square. And wow, progress on the 2 new office blocks is really starting to take shape. Looking across the site, you can really see just how much has changed since our last update only 2 weeks ago. There's now a lot more steelwork in place and the whole area is starting to rise out of the ground. At the bottom of the site, steel girders are rapidly climbing skyward around core lift shaft number 3. It's amazing to think that just a few weeks ago this part of the site was virtually at ground level. You can also see steel sheets lined up and ready to be laid out for the new floors, adding more structure to the building every day. Along the bottom floors there's now a lot of internal work going on, which is a great sign of the pace things are moving. Just a little further up you can see steelwork pushing higher around core lift shaft number 2, with just a couple of those bright orange support beams still remaining as the frame strengthens. Looking up Warsack Street gives you a real sense of scale. The building stretches around halfway along the street, and the steelwork here is already approaching the top of the first lift shaft. And finally, from round the back, you get a clear look of how far things have come on the first lift shaft. And glancing across to shafts 2 and 3, you can see how many floors are left before the building finally tops out. So that's the latest from Pilgrim Place. Huge progress in 2 weeks. Moving on to the brand new His Majesty's Revenue and Customs building, and there's been a lot of visible change on the outside since our last visit 2 weeks ago. Starting on the John Jobson Street side, you can see a lot more of the paved area is now complete. They've even started installing new lampposts along the walkway, which really starts to bring the space to life. Looking closer at the car park entrance, a brand new shutter has now been fitted, another clear sign that the area is getting close to completion. And just beside the stairs, the planters have now been filled with fresh greenery and a bit of colour to the site. Peeking through the windows, several floors inside the building are now well lit, showing just how much work has been happening behind the scenes. Moving round to New Bridge Street, the white wooden fence has finally been removed, giving us a clear view of the work going on behind it. It's the same story here, more paving laid, more lampposts fitted, and now a clear view of what will become the main entrance. Around the corner on Pilgrim Street, there's still quite a bit of paving work to finish on this side. Further down, the central reservation has now been completed, and it looks like both sides of the road could be opening soon. This whole area was originally expected to be pedestrianised, but from the looks of it, it might not be happening after all. Now moving down to Ellison Place to check out the brand new North East Space Skills and Technology Centre currently being built for Northumberland University. Looking at the building from the front, you can really start to get a sense of its overall shape and design. It's coming together nicely. As we move in for a closer look, down at the bottom end of the site, the first thing you notice are the glass panels. The first of them have now been fitted along this side of the building, and just next to them you can see pre-made panels stacked on pallets ready to be fitted soon. Moving around to the other side, not much has changed since our last update. It's pretty much the same as before. And finally, around at the far side, you'll spot one key difference. The temporary steel framework that was supporting the main structure during construction has now been removed. So progress is moving along steadily here at Ellison Place. Now, for a quick roundup of some of the other projects going on around the city. Let's start as usual on Northumberland Street, where work to replace the paving just seems to be taking forever. There's activity running virtually the whole length of the street from top to bottom, and right now it honestly looks like one big mess. Hopefully it'll be worth it once it's finally complete. Next up, let's take a look at the site of the second stag venue in the city. There's still no visible progress on it getting finished. And remember, this was originally supposed to open back in May this year. At the moment, it's just sitting there with no real signs of life. And finally, over at the Gotham Hotel, most of the paving work around the outside now looks complete. You can even see some window frames still lying around waiting to be fitted. Honestly, I can't see this opening in September as planned, but then again, sometimes things do move quickly, so we'll just have to wait and see. So moving on to the news, I mentioned at the beginning of the video about the new arena at Gateshead Quays. You might remember that ambitious plans for a new international conference centre and arena on the Gateshead quayside. It was meant to transform the area and bring big events to Tyneside, but it's been stalled for quite some time now, with little real progress. Well, there could be finally some movement. North East Mayor Kim McGuinness is reportedly poised to launch a new Mayoral Development Corporation, or MDC, that could target stalled developments across central Newcastle and Gateshead. These MDCs aren't just advisory groups. They can provide funding, make compulsory purchases of land, and even take over planning decisions from local councils, basically giving developments the boost they need to get going. And it's not just the Quayside Arena site being looked at. The Fourth Yards Arena in Newcastle, which I covered in my last update, could also be included in this regeneration push. At this stage, the exact scope and powers of the proposed Newcastle and Gateshead MDC aren't fully clear, but if it goes ahead, it could finally break the deadlock on these key sites. So do you think this means we're any closer to actually seeing the Quayside Arena get built, or is it just more talk? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment down below and let's get this discussion going. So just before I wrap this week's video up, I'd love to hear what you think. So drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts on all the construction going on around the city right now. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a massive thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of my future updates. A massive thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on 55 Degrees North.